I'm Matt Denoto, one of the makers of Harry Potter and the 10 Years Later, and I thought today I'd show you the wands I made for the series. Now this project was done completely independently, meaning any of the money that went into it basically came out of my pocket, so I didn't have $35 a pop to spend on wands from the Noble collection. But that was okay, because I knew the wands weren't going to be featured too heavily, so it was alright if they looked, to be generous, homemade. So basically I went down to the hardware store, bought a couple of long dowels for a couple bucks each, cut them into lengths, and then whittled them down. Most of the work was done using this Dremel saw, which I had gotten for Christmas the year before but never used. I also used this X-Acto knife and a drill. Now I thought I'd start with the wand that Wacky Wally shoves into Harry's hand in the newspaper at the end of episode 1, because that was just a practice wand. I mostly wanted to get the hang of creating these different levels of thickness. I also practiced putting these pockmarks in the handle with the drill, being careful not to drill too deep or into my hand. The Supermodel Shower Jumper's wand is the first one I made that I knew would be going to an actual character in the series, but I didn't make it with the jumper in mind. I was just trying things out, again still practicing. So I put in these finger guides here in this thumb rest, then made these kinds of racing stripes down the handle. When I was done, I took a look at it and decided, for whatever reason, that this was the wand of a douchebag, so that's why I gave it to the jumper. Stretch's wand is based loosely on the wand of Remus Lupin, not because the characters have anything in common, but just because Lupin's wand was kinda cool and different. Stretch's wand is also one of only 2 that I made that incorporates the use of modeling clay. I rolled a bit of it into a ball and stuck it on the end here, then took another piece, flattened it out, cut a jagged edge with the X-Acto knife, and wrapped it around the handle. Stretch's wand is a bit undersized, to emphasize his bigness of course. Speaking of which, next is the one I'm sure you've all been waiting for, boom! That's the wand of Squat Stinky Tits. I just happened to have a much thicker piece of dowel left over from a previous project, and I knew I wanted to make Squat's wand out of that. In fact, I have a picture from the initial read-through with Marty and Jonica standing next to each other, and Jonica holding the piece of dowel that would eventually become this wand. Now I knew I wanted it to be big, so I didn't carve off too much thickness from the shaft here, also because it would have been a time-consuming pain in the ass. I also didn't do anything too crazy with the handle, just keeping it all simple and letting the bigness of it be the most memorable feature. For comparison's sake, here it is next to Stretch's wand, and then a more normal-sized wand, that's Harry's there. Richard Shacklebolt is not an official character from the Harry Potter universe, but he's supposed to be related to Kingsley Shacklebolt, so of course I looked at Kingsley's wand for inspiration. Now Kingsley's wand is super cool, way cooler than I had any chance of trying to capture, so I just drew from it what I could. One of the things I took was this deep purple color. Another element I tried to integrate was this idea of the shaft of the wand growing out of the top of the handle instead of the middle like on the other wands. Then I carved in this decorative hole into the handle, which is as close as I could get to the crazy intricacies of Kingsley's wand. I feel the need to mention that Lamont loved his wand. We were shooting in LA in the summer, so between takes the rest of the cast would be stripping off their extra layers and trying to keep cool, but Lamont would be out somewhere wearing his wizarding robe, flicking around his wand like he was doing some kind of wizarding capoeira. It was pretty awesome. Andrew is another new character, and I kinda wanted Andrew to be that guy you underestimate. He might seem a little bit dim at first, but he actually really knows his stuff. Except IT. Plus he's seen some action in his time as an Auror. So those are the character-based justifications for the design of his wand. I also had to consider the fact that by the time I got around to making Andrew's wand, I was sort of running out of ideas as to how to keep the original non-canon wands looking interesting. So overall the design of his wand is fairly generic, but one idea I did have was to burn the handle. So after I was done carving the wand, I took it into the kitchen, lit the stove, and set it on fire. Now I may have either carved the handle too thin or let it burn too long because the first time around it broke in half. So this is actually the second wand of Andrew's that I had to make, but I was more careful than the first time around, and I think it came out pretty good. Malfoy's wand was one of the first ones I made because the design seemed fairly easy, and I think it came out as one of the best. It was also the first canon wand I made, meaning that I was trying in my own meager way to match the official wands from the movies, according to the Noble collection. Now I may have spent a bunch of my effort on this one whittling it down and making it thin, because I didn't whittle down any of the other ones this thin, even when I should have. Like with Ginny's wand, hers I made later in the process, and it shows. It should be much thinner than this, but I just didn't have the energy by then. Then there's the handle, which should have this cool cross-hatching pattern carved into it. I did my best, but it kinda came out a mess. Hermione's wand has these cool vines twisting around it, so I made that one last. I figured there were 2 ways to do it, the better way or the easy way. The better way would have been to actually try to carve the vines in out of the wand as I went along, but it would have been extremely complicated, so I went for the easy way, which was just to shave the dowel down to a point, and then use modeling clay to put the vines on after. I was worried that this would make it much more delicate, that one of the pieces of the vines would break off, but it's proven itself to be pretty durable. It survived getting thrown into the boxes as we brought it around to the different locations, so yeah. Ron's wand has these cool divots along the shaft, which really separates it from the other wands. It also has this knobby end with these pockmarks in it. The handles of both Ron's and Harry's wands, according to the Noble collection, were much thicker than the dowels I got, so I just did my best. I could have gotten a thicker dowel to start out with, but the thicker the dowel I got, the more whittling I would have had to do to get the thin parts thin. Finally, there's Harry's wand. Again, it was just about trying to match the official version, so I left this knot in the handle and then drilled down into it to make the divot. I used the X-Acto knife to carve these bark-like lines in. After they were all painted, I gave them a coat of sealant on there to give them this nice glossy finish as well. Making all the wands took about a month and a half, 2 months. Any day I could, I'd spend a few hours working on them. I'd often try to sneak in an hour before I went off to my job, a couple hours after I got back. This entire section of my apartment was just covered in sawdust because I don't have a garage or a workshop anywhere else to work on them. I laid down a tarp, but it was still just everywhere. I was covered in sawdust except where I was wearing my goggles and face mask. But I'm pretty proud of them, so yeah. That's the story of the wands of Harry Potter and the 10 years later. Thanks for watching.